Hi everyone, it's KnifeFighter22 here. I hope you guys are all well. And welcome to the next game of chess that I played. This game was very interesting because my e-pawn was coming up the board, and eventually it forced my opponent to resign because I was going to get another queen, which would give me a massive advantage. So it was a pretty good game. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. I start off with the King's Gambit, pawn up to f4. And here we see the King's Gambit accepted with knight to f3. And now he plays this funny line. This was in the same sort of 15 Gambit checkmate moves video which I did. He played bishop to c5, which is kind of strange because I can play pawn d4, attacking this bishop and forcing it to retreat. And actually, after he plays bishop to b4 check, he's got to move the bishop again. And now you'll notice he's moved the bishop 3 times now, which goes against opening principles, really, because if you look at it, the bishop, after I played bishop takes f4, is the only piece which he's moved, and he's not really contributing to the center. So now he plays his pawn up to h6, I guess just a solid move, maybe looking to play g5 and to get rid of my bishop. And now I play my bishop out to c4. So what this is doing is it's just attacking the f7 square, really, and it prepares my castle's kingside. As you'll know, the rook on the open f file is a nice feature of the King's Gambit. So hopefully I'll be able to attack f7 down this file. So d6 was played, and then I go ahead to get my plan together and get castle. And he plays knight f6, just a development move. So he's looking to take my e4 pawn here. And I could play knight d2. It's a little bit passive, in my opinion, for my type of style. So I go up and I play pawn to e5. While the king is still in the center, I will try and attack. I guess I don't want to say it's a mistake, but what happens here is d takes c5. I probably should have taken back with my knight. That would have been a really nice tactic because I'd have the pressure on the f7 and also free my queen up to come in this diagonal. But I do take back with my pawn, and basically, yeah, he's one of these players. He could see I had an advantage. So what he wants to do is he wants to get the queens off the board. So I opened up the d file, which probably wasn't a good idea, but nonetheless, the queens are traded off the board. And the knight goes back to h7, and you'll notice now the position is quite similar, except I've got a lead in development. But you'll notice that I have this pawn on e5. It is an isolated pawn, so what that means is it's going to be, for the moment, quite hard for me to defend, as it can be defended by no other pawns. But this is basically the key feature which allows me to win the game on the 26th move, so please keep an eye on this e-pawn. I now play bishop back to g3. And the main idea for this is just to retreat, just in case he ever plays his pawn out here, and maybe I can get the bishop along a different diagonal, because it's not really doing much on f4 at the moment. And he goes ahead and castles, and now I develop my knight. And he brings the bishop back to b6, along this very nice diagonal now. I could have played king f2, but because this pawn is on the dark square, I want to keep it supported, so I just bring my king into the corner. And then he plays his bishop down to g4, pinning my knight down to the rook, so this knight is temporarily pinned. But now I play the bishop into d5 to try and attack the b7 pawn and win his rook. He sees what I'm trying to do, so he plays c6, and now I bring the bishop back. And this was actually quite cool because I was luring him into playing f5, and you might be thinking, oh, you keep, Mr. KnifeFighter22, you keep moving your bishop around. But I did want him to play this move, pawn up to f5, because you'll notice that after I bring the bishop back to c2, this e-pawn is now a passed pawn, so this f-pawn is not going to get in the way of me thrusting this down the board. And as long as I can get a rook onto the e1 square, it should be pretty easy for me to power this pawn down to e8 and get another queen. He plays knight to a6. I think this is a bit odd because he can actually play knight to d7 here. Maybe he was thinking, oh, d6, and then this pawn's getting a bit far up the board. I now bring my bishop onto a better diagonal, bishop to b3 check, and after the king goes into the corner, this bishop is now going to be supporting the pawn, so I can launch it up the board. So e6, and now he plays his bishop into c5. I guess the main ideas behind this was because he's defending the e7 square, just in case my pawn goes up there, but now I can play rook to e1, and basically this supports the pawn wherever it is. If it's on e6, e7, or e8, it will always be supported by the bishop, by the rook. So that's why it's a very good move. And he brings the bishop back to e7. Now this is a temporary blockage move, but there's a very nice move which I can see now, which I did, which was knight up to e5. And you'll notice on g6, there's not only a fork between the king and the rook, but also this bishop as well. And after I remove this bishop, then I can move the knight back and then get this pawn up the board. But he makes the mistake, he plays knight to c5. I guess this was pretty quick chess, it was 5-minute blitz, and he only had 1.5 minutes left. So he was maybe trying to nap up the e6 pawn, maybe even a knight sacrifice, I don't know. But now I can go knight to g6 check. This is a fork between the king, rook, and bishop. And after the king goes across to g8, I do actually choose to take the bishop here instead of just taking the rook. And there's two reasons for this. One, if I go ahead and take the rook with my knight, and then he takes back, I would have only won 2 points in material because a knight is 3 and a rook is 5. But if I go ahead and take the bishop, I'll be 3 points ahead in material. Not only that, but I noticed that after I play knight takes e7, it's check, and the only square the king can go back to is h8. And after he goes back to h8, I can now repeat the same move again, knight to g6 check, and then after the king goes back to g8, this time I can win the rook. But you'll notice that he takes back with his knights, and after I play the move e7, there's a discover check on the king with this bishop, and basically what this means is he has to block the check, and he also got to stop the promotion of this pawn, which is going to be quite tricky. I guess he could have played knight to d6, blocking the checkmates, but then I can play bishop takes, and after knight takes, I can play rook takes, threatening to win the pawn, and then I'm 2 pieces up as well, and the rook. So I guess that's why I didn't want to do that. So he resigned in his position. So it's a pretty good game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.